Yesterday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul defiantly rejected an extradition warrant signed by Louisiana's governor for a New York doctor who violated Louisiana's state law regarding abortion-inducing drugs. And by the way, that doctor was also ordered yesterday by a judge in Texas to pay more than $100,000 in penalties for prescribing abortion drugs for a woman near Dallas. So with more cases like this expected to come out, how much longer can the issue for the state's claim hold up? Well, joining me now for a worldview discussion on this, as well as other items making headlines this week, is David Closson. Of course, David is the director for our Center for Biblical Worldview here at the Family Research Council. David, great to see you as always. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, happy Friday. Great to be with you again, Jody.
And happy Friday to you as well. I look back and I wonder where in the world has this week gone, but here we are. All right, listen, before I get into a bunch of other stuff, I just got to hit on this. New York, I just had on the last segment before I hit the New York story that I was just talking about. This whole thing from Rasmussen showing that a majority of Americans believe that our country's on the right track. I mean, this is the first time like in decades that something like this has happened. What's your thoughts on that poll?
Yeah, precisely. It's the first time in 20 years, so 2 decades, Jody. Rasmussen has been putting out this poll, kind of just asking Americans a battery of questions that they ask, of course. But do you think the country's on the right direction or the wrong direction? And it's a close poll, like you would expect it to be. But 47% of Americans told Rasmussen that they believed the country was on the right direction. 46% said on the wrong direction. And the way I look at it, Jody, is I think this is just kind of vindication or validation, so to speak, for the first month or so of the Trump presidency. I think the average American appreciates leadership in the Oval Office. They appreciate seeing strong leadership in the Oval Office. I think just in the last couple of days, President Trump's been meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, the King of Jordan, Benjamin Netanyahu last week, and other world leaders. I think the American people appreciates the policies on immigration, on the really the work that Elon Musk and Doge is doing, the Department of Government Efficiency. And so, again, I know it's early in the honeymoon period, so to speak. We're still early in the first 100 days. But if I was the Trump folks, I would look at a result like this with the Rasmussen poll as a general validation that a lot of the policies and decisions that they're making are resonating with the American people.
All right, so is that what we mean when Christians, for example, and what does it mean when we're suggesting that the nation's on the right track? I mean, certainly Christians' understanding of the right track will be different from someone else. Let's just put it that way. Their definition of the right track. What are we kind of specifically referring to here? And are we on the right track from a Christian or biblical worldview?
Well, that's a deeper level question, Jody, and I guess that is why we have our worldview segments, because as Christians, we don't just say the nation's on the right track because of economic indicators or political power or even cultural trends. As Christians, we want the nation to be aligning with God's moral order. Proverbs 14:34, after all, says righteousness exalts a nation, and so I think for Christians. For us to kind of get excited that the nation's on the right track, we would want to see a nation where justice is being upheld. We would want to see a nation where life is protected, where religious liberty and the ability to live out our faith is protected, really where truth is promoted. So I think where we see those things happening, Jody, a Christian could say, I think our nation is trending in the right direction. Because again, as Christians, we want to see truth promoted. We want to see life protected. We want to see, I think an important phrase that I would use, Jody, is we want to see a return to creation order. And generally speaking, but I guess I should also add, Jody, where those things are not happening, where creation order is being inverted, where we're seeing moral confusion, where we're seeing moral compromise, I think those would be indications that a nation is on the wrong track. And so I think, generally speaking, Jody, when you look kind of, again, it's been a quick 3 weeks for the Trump administration, but looking at the logic embedded in some of these executive orders that is protecting life, that is defining sex according to biology, according to creation order, I think these are all things that, again, I wrote a piece last week kind of cheekily titled "Making Social Conservatism Great Again." These are all things that I think would indicate, for a Christian perspective, not only has there been a vibe shift, so to speak, but that we are kind of getting back on track in a way that's consistent with the moral order.
Wow, really, really encouraging news to hear that. Now let me go back to what I originally was going to start with. Yesterday's news coming out of New York that I was talking about right before you came on the program, with the governor there of New York has rejected the request to extradite a doctor who's been charged with prescribing some abortion pills online to a woman in Louisiana. And this isn't this like the first time where these so-called shield laws are going to be tested? Absolutely. But fill us in on the details of this story. What's going on here?
Yeah, Jody, I think that's, you hit the nail on the head. That's why this is an important story, because you will remember after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, it's in Justice Alito's majority opinion that the decision, the policy-making authority to regulate abortion goes back to the people and their elected representatives. And so many state legislatures jumped in the void, so to speak, and passed very strong pro-life bills. And many states that had already passed these pro-life legislation, those laws were allowed to go back into effect. They were called trigger laws. So that's what you had happen, kind of where you had conservative leadership in place. But in places like New York, you're exactly right. They passed these so-called shield laws that provided protections for abortion providers, abortion doctors, agencies, pharmacies that prescribe abortion pills, specifically mifepristone, and they would ship that across state lines. And so in this case right here, Louisiana, we know the governor, a friend of the program, under his leadership, Louisiana has very strong pro-life laws in place. And exactly what you just described, you have a doctor who's based in New York who sent abortion pills across state lines from New York down to Louisiana, and they were given to a minor child. And so Louisiana is wanting to extradite this this abortion provider, and New York saying absolutely not. So this is a real showdown. And Jody, why this is important is because chemical abortion is the new frontier. I think most viewers of Washington Watch know that a majority of abortions, and this is true for the last couple of years, are not surgical abortions. The majority of abortions for years, even right before Roe v. Wade was overturned, are not taking place at clinics. They're taking place with this 2-pill abortion pill regimen. And so again, and by the way, this is the wild, wild west. There are no regulations over these chemical abortion pills. The Biden administration gutted even some of the few remaining regulations that were in place. And so, Jody, this is going to be a massive story to watch. Because hopefully these laws will be challenged. Because as it is right now, it does not matter what Florida does or Louisiana does. They can have the strongest pro-life laws in the nation. And yet if these shield laws are allowed to be upheld, well, you can have abortion pills mailed in to conservative jurisdictions from liberal states, and we'll see abortion, those numbers continue just to go up, Jody.
Wow. Well, here we have at the same time yesterday, a Texas judge fined this very same doctor over $100,000 for sending these abortion pills to a woman in the Dallas area. So what's going on in that part of this case?
Yeah, it's part of really the same story in a sense, because it is the same doctor in New York, again, Jody, who's just kind of has this carte blanche freedom to mail abortion pills all over the country. And so again, in Texas, again, we have some strong pro-life champions in the Lone Star State that have passed strong legislation that prohibits, the use of these drugs. But again, you have in place this shield law that is providing protection for this abortion drug provider. And so what you have is this Texas judge has ordered very explicitly, stop sending abortion drugs in violation of Texas law into our state. He's ordered this provider to pay over $100,000. But again, I think what's important for people to understand is that this is a stark departure, Jody, from the way interstate commerce normally works. The practice of extraditing and honoring subpoenas and sharing information. Normally, states cooperate with one another. But in the jurisdictions, the states that have passed these so-called shield laws, it's a massive win for the abortion lobby at this point. That again, these abortion doctors can operate with basically impunity. They can get away with this with no legal repercussions. And so this really is, Jody, going to be one of the new frontiers for those of us who are convictional pro-lifers, who don't want to see these abortion numbers go up, who understand how dangerous chemical abortion is, not just for unborn babies, of course, which it kills, but for the women who take it. You know, Jody, 1 in 25 women who take these abortion pills, the 2-pill regimen, ends up in the emergency room. And again, it's completely unregulated. And so again, this is going to be a major thing, a major story to watch. And again, I would encourage all of our viewers to just be praying, because again, this is the previous generation that would pray out outside abortion clinics, heroic frontline work. The next frontier is these chemical abortion pills right now that are allowed to parachute in to conservative states and continue to kill unborn children.
Wow. A lot going on there we need to keep a pulse on for sure. If I can switch gears with you here a little bit, David, there's another story happens to be coming out of Louisiana as well, where we have a law professor there who was recently barred by an appeals court from returning to work at LSU's law school. And the professor's been on leave since last month. Apparently, it was discovered that he had made some disparaging comments about the state of Louisiana, the governor there, as well as President Trump. What's your thoughts on this story? What's going on?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're familiar with the term ideological capture. And if you're not, ideological capture is just this idea that institutions can be captured by ideology. And, those of us who are conservative know, Jody, that this is something that has long been a problem in higher education. And so here in this situation at Louisiana State University, LSU, you have this law professor who's been there for years, has been teaching for well over a decade, allegedly in his class, and he was recorded, I believe, saying some really crude things, not only about the governor there in the state of Louisiana, but also about the president of the United States. And so again, there was a court, so LSU has put him on paid leave. There was a court that ordered him, the administration, to let him come and teach again. And then an appeals court has said, no, not yet. And I think this speaks to the fact, and I'm glad this has happened in a way, Jody, because it really does, in my view, highlight the ideological capture of so many of the law schools and the institutions of higher education. Jody, a couple weeks ago, 2 months ago, my wife and I had our first child, and I'm already thinking about, schooling and things like that. And you look at the kind of the landscape of higher education, and it is not one that is friendly towards conservatives or for Christians. And I hope every parent that's paying attention to this story and others realizes just how infested, if I can use that word, much of higher education is, and how much the left has captured our institutions. And so, again, I hope LSU continues to do the right thing. It appears that they're doing that by not allowing just such blatant ideology in the classroom like this. But it's something that I think that it's a warning sign for those of us who are conservative Christians.
Absolutely. Listen, David, we've got, about a minute or less. Anything else that we should be following as Christians, that something we need to be tracking?
I think I would just encourage, I know there's been a lot in the news recently, Jody. I would just, we know from Scripture, Paul commands us to be praying for kings and for officials in high places, that we may to lead a godly and dignified life in every way. There's a lot going on. Talk about the first 100 days, Jody. I know we have Operation Prayer Shield, encouraging folks to be praying. But President Trump and the folks that are around him here in D.C. and state legislatures that are getting very busy right now, introducing legislation. What a wonderful time, again, at kind of the beginning of many of these legislative sessions, to be praying for all of our leaders to make decisions that honor God, promote human flourishing. And I think I just want to encourage folks, I think this is a great time to be praying because there's so much to be praying about.
Absolutely, and could not be a better way for us to end this program and this week. David Closson from the Center for Biblical Worldview here at FRC, thank you so much for the great work you do and for helping us break it down each Friday from a biblical perspective. Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Jody.